In this video, you will learn about the structure and functions of blood. Blood has several major functions, including transportation, defense, and maintenance of homeostasis. I will describe the composition of whole blood, the functions of the major plasma proteins, and the functions of the formed elements of blood: erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. Transportation is a major function of blood and the cardiovascular system. For example, oxygen is carried in the blood from the lungs to cells throughout the body to support aerobic cellular respiration. The waste product carbon dioxide is then transported in the blood back to the lungs for removal from the body. Blood also transports other wastes. For example, the nitrogenous waste urea, which is produced from amino acid catabolism in the liver, is transported to the kidneys, where it can be removed from the body. In addition, blood transports nutrients absorbed from the digestive system to cells throughout the body. Another important transportation function of blood is carrying hormones from endocrine glands to target cells, where they regulate cellular function. Defense is another major function of blood. Leukocytes, or white blood cells, are responsible for defending the body against infection. These cells can leave the bloodstream and migrate into tissues in a process called emigration. For example, leukocytes can move into a wound to help defend against invading bacteria or other pathogens. A diversity of leukocytes defend against infection in several ways. Here we see a macrophage performing phagocytosis, engulfing and digesting pathogens. We see another type of leukocyte called an eosinophil releasing cytotoxic granules that help destroy pathogens. Another major function of blood is maintaining homeostasis. One example is body temperature regulation. Blood transports heat throughout the body. When the body is too hot, increased blood flow to the skin helps release heat and cool the body. Blood also helps maintain pH homeostasis. The normal blood pH is about 7.4. If blood pH decreases, bicarbonate acts as a buffer. It reacts with hydrogen ions to form carbonic acid, which is then converted into carbon dioxide and water by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. The carbon dioxide is removed by the lungs. If blood pH becomes too high, the respiratory system can slow the removal of carbon dioxide. This increases carbon dioxide levels in the blood, lowering pH and helping restore homeostasis. A centrifuge is used to separate blood components. A blood sample is spun at high speed, causing denser components to move to the bottom and less dense components to rise to the top. After centrifugation, the top layer is plasma containing mostly water with dissolved solutes such as electrolytes, nutrients, proteins, and hormones. The middle layer is the buffy coat containing leukocytes and platelets. The bottom layer is the hematocrit containing primarily erythrocytes. When blood plasma proteins are analyzed by electrophoresis, the proteins separate based on their relative charge, size, and shape. We see here that the top band is albumin, and other proteins are grouped together in the lower bands called alpha, beta, and gamma globulins. Albumin is the most abundant plasma protein, making up about 50 to 60% of plasma proteins. It functions to transport substances such as fatty acids, cholesterol, and hormones. Albumin also helps maintain osmotic balance in the blood. The alpha and beta globulins include a variety of transport proteins, including the apolipoproteins. Apolipoproteins combine with a monolayer of phospholipids to form the outer layer of lipid packages called lipoprotein particles. Lipoprotein particles are important for the transport of cholesterol, triglycerides, and other lipids in the blood. Fibrinogen is a plasma protein important for blood clotting. While fibrinogen is soluble in blood plasma, in the mechanism of coagulation, fibrinogen is converted to an insoluble polymer called fibrin, which stabilizes blood clots. The gamma globulins are also known as immunoglobulins, or more commonly antibodies. These are defense proteins produced by B lymphocytes. Antibodies recognize specific molecular structures called antigens, and this plays a key role in adaptive immunity. The formed elements of blood include erythrocytes, commonly known as red blood cells, thrombocytes, also known as platelets, and leukocytes, commonly known as white blood cells. Erythrocytes transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. They have a biconcave disc shape that increases surface area for gas exchange. Hemoglobin is the protein in erythrocytes that carries oxygen. It consists of 4 globin chains, each containing a heme group with an iron atom that binds oxygen. Iron deficiency can impair hemoglobin production, leading to anemia, which reduces oxygen delivery and can cause fatigue. Platelets are also known as thrombocytes because they help to form a thrombus, a clot inside of a blood vessel. Platelets are important for the mechanism of hemostasis that works to stop bleeding. When platelets are activated, they change shape, becoming spiked, and release chemical messages to activate other platelets and stimulate coagulation. These activated platelets bind to damaged blood vessel walls and stick together, forming a platelet plug in the end of the ruptured blood vessel. There is a wide diversity of leukocytes. One way of classifying leukocytes is based on the presence or absence of cytoplasmic granules. The leukocytes with granules are called granulocytes. This includes neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. The leukocytes without cytoplasmic granules are called agranulocytes. Lymphocytes and monocytes are the 2 major types found in blood. Neutrophils are the most abundant leukocytes in blood. They are the first leukocytes to respond to infection, and they can defend against pathogens by performing phagocytosis. Neutrophils can be recognized by the shape of their nucleus and the color that their cytoplasmic granules stain. The nucleus of a neutrophil has multiple lobes. For this reason, neutrophils are also known as polymorphonucleocytes, or polys. The cytoplasmic granules of a neutrophil stain with both red acidic and blue basic dyes, giving them a light purple color. Eosinophils have a bilobed nucleus and red staining cytoplasmic granules. These cells are named for the red acidic dye called eosin that stains their granules. Eosinophils release cytotoxic chemicals to defend against parasites, and they are also capable of phagocytosis. While eosinophils are typically only about 2 to 4% of the total leukocytes in blood, higher numbers of eosinophils are typical of patients experiencing allergies, parasitic worm infestations, and certain autoimmune diseases. Basophils are the least common leukocytes, typically comprising less than 1% of the total leukocyte count. The granules of basophils stain best with basic stains, giving them a dark blue color. In response to pathogens, basophils release histamine, a chemical that stimulates inflammation, helping recruit other leukocytes to defend against the infection. While elevated counts of basophils are associated with allergies and parasitic infections, lower counts are associated with pregnancy and stress. Lymphocytes are the second most common type of leukocyte, accounting for about 20 to 30% of all leukocytes, and are essential for the immune response. The 3 major groups of lymphocytes include natural killer cells, B lymphocytes, and T lymphocytes. Natural killer cells are capable of recognizing and killing cells that contain foreign or abnormal markers. This includes cancer cells and cells infected with a virus. B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, also known as B cells and T cells, play prominent roles in defending the body against specific pathogens and are involved in the specific adaptive immunity. B cells produce antibodies that recognize specific molecules associated with a pathogen. These molecules that bind to antibodies are called antigens. Similarly, T cells produce receptors that allow them to recognize antigens associated with specific pathogens. In contrast to natural killer cells and other leukocytes of the innate immunity, the B and T cells of the adaptive immunity produce memory cells after exposure to a pathogen. These memory cells produce antibodies and T cell receptors that bind to specific antigens. This enables adaptive immunity to mount rapid responses upon subsequent exposures. Monocytes normally represent 2 to 8% of the total leukocyte count. They are easily recognized by their large size and indented nuclei. These cells are specialized for phagocytosis to engulf debris, foreign pathogens, and dead, worn out, or damaged cells. When monocytes leave the blood and enter other tissues, they become macrophages. In summary, this video covered the structure and functions of blood. Blood has three major functions: transportation, defense, and maintenance of homeostasis. Whole blood is composed of plasma and formed elements. Plasma contains important proteins, including albumin, globulins, and fibrinogen. The formed elements include leukocytes, platelets, and erythrocytes. Leukocytes defend against pathogens and support immune function. Neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes are the major types of leukocytes in blood. While platelets are essential for blood clotting, erythrocytes contain the protein hemoglobin and primarily function to transport oxygen in blood.